The last time a human being stood on the moon was December 1972. Since then, we have built the internet, landed on a comet, parked a telescope 1,000,000 miles from Earth. And yet, the moon, our nearest neighbor, 3 days away, we have not touched again. 50 years of silence on a rock we already conquered. The official reasons are real, but some of them do not quite add up. And the deeper you dig, the stranger the truth becomes. Subscribe now, because what stopped us from going back is not what you think, and it may be worse than the dark. December 14th, 1972. Eugene Cernan climbs the ladder of the Apollo 17 Lunar Module Challenger, takes one last look at the gray plain of Taurus Littrow, and says the words that would haunt half a century: "We leave as we came, and, God willing, as we shall return." He was the last. Since that moment, 12 nations have launched astronauts. Private companies have built reusable rockets. We have mapped the ocean floor and sequenced the human genome. But no human boot has touched the lunar surface in over 50 years. Think about that. In the same span, we went from Cernan's footprint to smartphones that stream 4K video from orbit. The technology exploded. The ambition did not. And the first reason why is not a mystery at all. It is something far more disturbing. We literally forgot how. The Saturn V remains the most powerful rocket ever successfully flown. 110 meters tall, 3,000 tons on the pad, 34.5 million newtons of thrust at liftoff. It was the machine that made the impossible routine. And today, no one on Earth can build another. Not because the physics changed, because the blueprints were never a single book. Saturn V was built from millions of individually machined parts, made by hundreds of contractors, each with their own tooling, their own tribal knowledge, their own workarounds scribbled in margins. When Apollo ended in 1972, the tooling was scrapped. The specialists retired. The knowledge scattered. NASA still has crates of microfilm, but you cannot rebuild the most complex machine ever made from dusty manuals. That is the mundane truth, and it is stranger than the myth. Because if the technology was so precious, why was it thrown away so fast? At its peak in 1966, the Apollo program consumed more than 4% of the entire United States federal budget. Adjusted for today, the total cost is estimated at around $260 billion. That is not a rocket program. That is a war economy pointed at the sky. 400,000 engineers, scientists, seamstresses stitching spacesuits by hand, factory workers pouring rocket fuel tanks the size of buildings, an entire generation of American industry bent toward one target: beat the Soviets to the moon. No modern space program comes close. NASA's total budget today hovers near 0.4% of federal spending, a tenth of Apollo. And here is the uncomfortable question that leads us deeper. If the money was the only barrier, someone would have paid it by now. Someone very nearly did. And then they stopped. Because Apollo was never really about the moon. It was a Cold War weapon, dressed as an exploration program. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin orbited the Earth and terrified Washington. President Kennedy needed a target the Soviets could not reach first. The moon was chosen not because it was the next logical step, but because it was hard enough to buy America time. When Neil Armstrong stepped off the ladder in July 1969, the war was won, and the political will evaporated almost overnight. By 1970, Apollo 20 was canceled. By 1971, Apollos 18 and 19 followed. Public interest collapsed. Congress moved on. The moon, the most extraordinary destination in human history, became yesterday's headline. But there is something odd about how fast the plug was pulled. Because those canceled missions were not just paperwork, the hardware was almost built. There is a danger no astronaut who walked on the moon likes to talk about openly. Between low Earth orbit and the lunar surface lies the Van Allen belts, two donuts of trapped high-energy particles that would fry an unshielded human. Apollo crews punched through them in under an hour, minimizing exposure. But beyond the belts, in deep space, there is no atmosphere and no magnetic field. Solar particle storms can arrive with almost no warning, delivering lethal doses in hours. Galactic cosmic rays, iron nuclei moving at nearly the speed of light, slice through spacecraft walls like they are paper. Apollo astronauts got lucky. There was no major solar storm during any of their missions. Had one hit Apollo 16 or 17 in transit, the crew would likely have died before splashdown. And that luck is not a strategy for going back. Apollo 18, Apollo 19, Apollo 20. 3 missions. Fully funded at the start of 1970, hardware and advanced production, crews already in training, then canceled. Officially, it was budget cuts and public fatigue. But here's the strange part. The Saturn V rockets that would have flown them were not scrapped. They were rolled outside. Today, you can walk up to one at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Another lies on its side in Houston. A third at Huntsville, Alabama. 3 of the most powerful machines ever built, exposed to weather for decades, treated like museum curiosities. Imagine canceling the last 3 D-Day landings and leaving the ships to rust on the beach. That is what happened. Some of the target sites those missions were meant to visit, Copernicus Crater, Tycho, the Farside Highlands, have never been touched by humans since. And one of them may be the reason we stayed away. 12 men walked on the moon. Every single one came back changed. Buzz Aldrin, second man on the surface, spiraled into depression and alcoholism, later writing about the crushing weight of anticlimax. Edgar Mitchell of Apollo 14 reported what he called a savikalpa samadhi, a mystical unity experience on the return flight, and spent the rest of his life researching consciousness and unexplained phenomena. Alan Bean quit astronaut work to become a painter obsessed with the moon's gray. Charlie Duke found religion. Cernan, the last man, called it too much for one lifetime. Now, these are their own accounts. Subjective, human, unproven as anything more than psychology. But taken together, they form an unsettling pattern. And the pattern gets stranger when you notice which side of the moon they were never allowed to land on. The moon is tidally locked. One face always turned toward us, one face forever hidden. Not a dark side, both halves get sunlight, but a far side we never see from Earth. And no Apollo mission landed there. The official reason is simple communication. A lander on the far side has no direct radio line to Earth. And in the 1960s, relay satellites were not ready. Fair enough. But here is the strange part. In January 2019, China's Chang'e 4 became the first spacecraft in history to soft land on the lunar far side, in the vast von Karman crater. In 2024, Chang'e 6 returned the first samples ever collected from that hemisphere. The rush was extraordinary. Whatever is on that side of the moon, unusual mineral concentrations, ancient impact basins, something else, someone very badly wanted to get there first, and they did not tell us why. In 2006, NASA quietly admitted something remarkable. The original high-quality slow-scan television tapes of the Apollo 11 moon landing, the raw, unconverted signal from the lunar surface, were gone, erased, recorded over during a routine tape shortage in the 1970s and early 80s. The footage humanity has seen ever since is a low-resolution conversion, the kind of copy of a copy that made the images blurry and dreamlike. NASA spent years searching warehouses. In 2009, they released a restored version, restored from broadcast copies because the originals no longer existed. This is not a conspiracy. It is a documented, embarrassing bureaucratic mistake, but it is a fact that has fueled 50 years of suspicion. Because if the greatest achievement in human history could be casually taped over, what else was lost? Or, some ask quietly, what was on the parts we were never shown? And here we have to be careful. There is a persistent legend repeated for decades in books, forums, alleged deathbed confessions that Apollo astronauts saw something on the moon. Structures, craft, lights, that humanity was, in the words of the story, warned to stay away. Let us be absolutely clear. There is no verified evidence for this. No astronaut has ever publicly confirmed it under their own name in an official setting. It is an unproven claim, a modern myth, and it should be treated as one. But it exists for a reason. It exists because the real story, the canceled missions, the erased tapes, the sudden abandonment of the greatest project in human history, leaves a shape in the mind that begs for an explanation. The legend fills that shape. The truth, as we will see, is stranger, because the real reason we cannot go back is smaller, harder, and sitting on every surface up there. Lunar dust. It sounds harmless. It is anything but. Because the moon has no atmosphere and no water, its dust has never been weathered. Every particle is a jagged glass shard formed by billions of years of micrometeorite impacts vaporizing rock. Under a microscope, it looks like broken razors. It is electrostatically charged by solar radiation, so it clings to everything: suits, visors, seals, lungs. Apollo astronauts reported the smell inside the lander, like burnt gunpowder. Harrison Schmitt, a geologist on Apollo 17, developed what he called lunar hay fever within hours. The dust destroyed vacuum seals on sample containers. It scored visor coatings. Long-term exposure, medical researchers now believe, could cause silicosis-like scarring in human lungs. A permanent lunar base does not just have to survive radiation and vacuum. It has to survive a world where the ground itself is trying to kill you. And the current program built to face all this is already collapsing. Artemis. NASA's program to return humans to the moon by the mid-2020s, announced in 2017. Original crewed landing target, 2024. Current best estimate, no earlier than 2027, and slipping. The Space Launch System rocket that replaces Saturn V has cost, by the GAO's own audits, over $23 billion to develop and more than $4 billion per launch. Its first flight, Artemis 1, went in November 2022, uncrewed, successful, and immediately followed by years of delays. The heat shield came back damaged in ways engineers still do not fully understand. The lander, contracted to SpaceX's Starship, has not yet flown a full lunar profile. Even NASA leadership publicly admits the schedule keeps slipping. This is not incompetence. This is the honest cost of doing something we have not done in half a century, with a workforce that has never done it at all. And meanwhile, someone else is not slipping. In 2023, China formally announced its plan to land taikonauts on the moon before 2030, their Long March 10 rocket, their Mengzhou capsule, their Lanyue lander, all in advanced development. Chang'e 6, in June 2024, returned 1,935 grams of far-side samples flawlessly. They are not stumbling. They are methodical. And they have declared their target, the lunar South Pole, the same region NASA wants because it holds permanently shadowed craters full of water ice. Water means fuel, oxygen, survival. Whoever controls that ice controls the gateway to the rest of the solar system. This is the real, quiet climax of our story. Not a monster on the far side, not a warning from the stars, something far more mundane and far more chilling. A second moon race, this time not for a flag, but for territory. And the country that stopped going in 1972 may not be the country that plants the next boot. So this is the truth, and it is stranger than any myth. We did not lose the moon because something drove us away. We lost it because we won a war, ran out of money, forgot how to build the rocket, misplaced the tapes, and turned our backs. The most extraordinary thing humans ever did, and we simply stopped doing it. The closest place we have ever been, and now the closest place we can no longer reach. Someone will stand there again. The only question is, whose flag will be in the frame? So tell me, do you believe we simply chose to stop? Or do you think something is still waiting up there for us to notice?